Is connecting. All right, we are live. Thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you, Maira, for joining us as well. Today we are talking about Mexico in today's virtual travel party. So again, we're talking about Mexico, and she's gonna introduce us to Mexico tacos y más. Are you ready? Because I'm ready. Welcome, Maira.
Me too. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited just to share more about my travels and mi cultura and everything, that I've experienced.
Everybody always wants to go to Mexico, but where should we go when we go there? What do you recommend?
Yeah. It's really about what kind of experience do you want to have, because Mexico is so diverse, and I've been lucky that I've been traveling there practically all my life since I was a little kid. My family's in Michoacan. I've been to Ciudad de Mexico in Mexico City, Cancun in the Yucatan, Quintana Roo, Cabo, Tijuana. All of that is very different. And I remember somebody in Mexico once described it to me very, very well. There's Mexico City, that is like typical city life, like any other city, very fast paced, a lot of different attractions, museums, art, all of that there. Then there's the campo and the country life, which is more slow paced. It's more like home cooking, more indigenous traditions, and there's like more of that family culture life in Mexico. And then as you get closer to the north, it's a little bit more Americanized in a way. It's very modern cities. Then you have the tourist places, which are the beach cities, and that tends to be more on the south side of Mexico, and that's more relaxed, more on the beach side, more seafood. So it just depends on what kind of experience, what kind of vacation you want to have.
Yes. So you have a book also. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I am an author of a book. It's called Aventura, Amor y Tacos, The Path to Reconnecting with the Motherland. And that came about because in 2018, I decided to leave my job and go to Mexico and live there for a few months. So I spent some time there with my abuelos, and I was there for about 5 months, and it all just kind of talks about the discoveries I made of my culture and, going back to Mexico and reconnecting with that.
Very nice. So tell us about your journey of reconnecting with Mexico. Where did you go? What did you do? And everything that we should know.
Yeah. So what my experience was ever since I was a kid, I remember going every year for Christmas, para las Posadas, the fiestas and all of that. And from when I started college until about 2016, there had been like an 8-year span that I hadn't gone to Michoacan, where I was originally from. I'd gone to other places, Cabo, Tijuana a lot, but I haven't gone back to like the center of Mexico. When I went and when I decided to go, it was because I needed a break. So it was kind of like my Eat, Pray, Love adventure. I love that book, and I just wanted to go travel and disconnect. So part of what I wanted to do was just be there and learn from it. So it was almost like I went as a tourist. Even though I had gone often, I went there to learn and to get to know people. So I spent time with my abuelos. I got to know
Michoacan, right?
Michoacan, yes. I got to know the pueblo, the rancho. Everybody there got to know me as well. I learned how to cook. I went to some of the tourist places there. I was able to take some of my primas and my friends with me because they don't get those chances often, to go see new places. And after that, I was also there for Dia de los Muertos. So that was one of the biggest celebrations that I got to experience. And after that, I decided to do a little bit of a solo trip. So I ended up going to Ciudad de Mexico for a couple of days. And going on my own, was definitely a first time for me to really do that solo travel. And that was part of a journey to then go to Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and Tulum. And I was there for about 2 weeks as well. So,
wow. Now you said you were there for the holidays and you experienced the posadas. What are those? What are posadas?
Yeah, so the posadas, they are a Mexican tradition. I'm not sure how many other, Latin American countries celebrate it, but what it is, I believe it's 12 or the 9 days, I can't remember, right before Christmas, where the tradition is in every pueblo, in every little town, the people gather together and they go from one house one night, another house another night. And it symbolizes the journey that Mary and Joseph took, in trying to find a place to have Jesus born. So they kind of emulate that, and you go from house, and then they pray, they sing, they have food afterwards, and it's just really a place for people to hang out and celebrate.
For our people that are connected, do they do something like that in your countries as well? Please tell us, write it in the chat, in Instagram Live. Tell us if they do posadas in your countries too. Now, you also said that you cooked. You learned how to cook.
Yes.
What kind of dishes did you learn how to cook?
Yes, I am lucky to still have my abuela, and there's a lot of things that I wish I had learned how to cook, but I never took the time with my mom. But when I was in Mexico, my grandparents can't cook that much. My abuelo's 91, my grandma's 86. So to be able to cook a lot, I was able to provide those hands for them. So enchiladas, estilo Michoacan. So I learned how to make those. I learned how to make chile rellenos, pozole. My tia taught me how to make tamales. And then just the basic everyday stuff, the chiles, the salsa, the carnes, the arroz, all the everyday things I would learn. So I think I got a lot of the basics that I didn't really know. It's like, oh, it's almost the same thing. You just change one ingredient or two ingredients. So I was able to practice and how to actually make it good. Because I would taste it, my grandma would taste it, and then I would notice a difference. So
yes, and grandparents usually have the best techniques and the flavors that they. So you being able to recreate that, oh wow! Now I want to come to your house to taste your food.
My abuela says, vengan todos. Yeah.
You also say that one of the biggest things that you experienced was Dia de los Muertos actually in Mexico.
Yes.
Now, in which cities did you experience it, and how was it?
Yeah, it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had traveling. I'll show some pictures here on the Zoom call, and I'll skip around to some of the slides. So I have my abuelos there. Michoacan is where I'm from. So they have a lot of the traditions, a lot of the bailes.
What is that picture on the top?
Here it's Morelia. Morelia is the capital of Michoacan, and then the other pictures are of traditions where people dress up in traditional attire, and they have, their celebrations during certain holidays. Then I have Dia de los Muertos. So Dia de los Muertos happens. I'm lucky enough, and I didn't know this before I went to Michoacan to spend that time with my abuelos. I had seen Coco, and I was like, "Oh, Oaxaca's the place to go." Wow. That's where I want to go. Until my friends told me, like, "Oh no, they're very big traditions because there's a huge indigenous community in Michoacan." Like I didn't even know that, even though we dress like that. There's this big disconnect of what I knew from the state that I'm from. Because of the dresses, we always dress traditionally in our fiestas every year. And for whatever reason, it didn't click to me that was like the indigenous culture of our state. So we went to Sinsunzan, which is a small town right outside of Pátzcuaro. And they do the traditional indigenous traditions where they decorate the tombs. I got to decorate my abuelos' tombs from my mom's side because they both have passed. So I, got to participate in that tradition of cleaning the tomb, decorating, buying the flowers. And then everybody, like the whole town is there in the Panteon, and people, they have a fabuloso, like all of these things happening in the Panteon. So I got
Did you have to sit there and protect the lights from turning off too?
I didn't, because I got to experience it in two different ways. So my little rancho, that's where my family's from. They're not super indigenous culture, right? But Sinsunsan, which was about an hour away, was. So in the daytime, I spent that time cleaning and preparing my grandparents' tomb. And then in the evening was when we traveled to Sinsunsan to experience like the really traditional one. And I'm not gonna, it's gonna sound funny, but it really felt like I was walking into the movie Coco when we first got there, because
Uh-huh.
you see the candles, you see all of the cempasúchil, which is a flower. Then there's like music in the background, and I didn't know how big it was until I experienced it, because there's tour buses after tour buses like coming in and out. And this is a small town. So to see that and just see so many people, from international cities like come to experience it, it was magical. And seeing all the tombs and how everybody puts their own spin and everybody's tomb is very unique was even better. It's just like so magical to be there.
Wow. I went last November as well to Mexico. We experienced it in Mixquic, which is a little bit southern from Coyoacan. And I had an amazing time. I cried
Wow.
as I was walking
Yes.
in to the Pantheon because I was just overwhelmingly happy
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm a high school teacher, was a
Uh-huh.
high school teacher, Spanish high school teacher, and I taught my students El Día de los Muertos as a cultural activity every year, but I could
Yeah.
never get the days off from school. So this
Yeah.
time was the only time after 10 years that I was finally able to go. So I
Yeah.
feel you when you say, like, you just feel like it's surreal almost
Yeah.
to experience
Yeah.
Dia de Muertos in Mexico itself. Wow.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to see a different side of the culture and how they view death. Because in the United States, it's very different. Like, I think it's very dark. People wear black, it's very sad. And not that it isn't sad in Mexico, like when people do lose somebody, it is sad, but to have that tradition of every year, remember those people, it's a beautiful thing. And I think sometimes in the States, unless it was somebody very, very close, you almost forget about that loss after time. And how often do you visit, the burial places? But they do that so frequently in Mexico, and it's more of a remembrance and a celebration. So it's bright and colorful, and it's a big, big celebration and a big party as well. So it was so much fun to be
Yeah.
there.
Nice. Have you gone back again to see another town and how they celebrate it?
To a different, I did, so I've gone the last 2 years. And it's funny because they're such small towns. So the first year, we only went for a few hours to Sinsunsan. And then the second year, we actually got to go to Pátzcuaro, which is a main city. And over there was just a party. So they partied all the way through sunrise. So we were there just like staying out all night and, getting to experience all of that. But a lot of it was sitting in traffic because of how long it takes to get to one place to another, just because it's one road, that connects all of those towns together.
Yes.
Yeah, but I do want to experience it. Oaxaca's still on my list.
It's
you
on
know,
my list too. I
yeah,
wanted to go this year, but I don't know what's gonna happen now.
I know. Yeah,
Let's just hope
yeah.
so we can go. So, what other cities did you visit, and what do you recommend we do when we go there?
Yeah. So I've been lucky enough to visit a lot of different cities. So, um, Cabo is one, but it's more touristy. And I would put Cancun right next to it. So you won't see a lot of the traditional Mexican culture. You might see, cuisine, but not like the people, because it's more of a tourist town. I would recommend Playa del Carmen as an in-between. Tulum is more like a hippie vibe, for those people who like the hippie beach vibes. But it's also a really great town. But my recommendation would be to always seek out the people who live there and like who have lived there for a while, and to have those conversations. Um, One thing that I did was, when I was traveling in the Yucatan, I used couch surfing a lot. So I know a lot of travelers might be familiar with that. and the social like happy hours, where you just get to meet people who are also traveling. So with that, I was able to, like in Playa del Carmen, we met up for beers, and then the day after, everybody was like, "Oh, we're going to the cenotes, which are the water holes, the sinkholes." So like we got to experience that, and we went to the Maya ruins in Coba and all these different places just from the people that we met. So I would recommend like go out of your comfort zone if that's out of your comfort zone, because I know for me it was.
And how
Just
was
to meet
couch
people.
surfing for you as a female? Because the people that I hear that use it is mostly males, but now you're saying that you used it and it was fine.
I use a social app. So there's a different, I've never stayed at a couch surfing host house.
Okay.
But the social aspect was they have like scheduled events, like, or hey, I'm going out dancing, who wants to come? Or I'm going out for a beer, who wants to come? So I did that because it was like I could either go do things by myself or go meet people. So I did that.
Nice. Okay.
But with that, I met a lot of the hosts in those cities. So now that I know them, I'm like, you know what? I'll actually go and probably take advantage of the opportunity if they're offering a space. I'd be like, hey, I'm back in town, could I go and do that? Because I met some amazing people. Like I had such a good time.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, now you gave me more information about that app, and I'm about to download it myself.
Yes. Yeah, it's very fun. But I've also visited a few other places. I know one place I really enjoyed was Guanajuato. That was a very like romantic city, and a lot of like culture and history there as well. And then it was very connected to, we passed through León, Mexico, and then also San Miguel de Allende. So that was another beautiful spot just to visit.
Now, what do you recommend we do in Guanajuato? You say it's romantic. So if we have couples that are viewing this channel, like what should they do?
Yeah. What's interesting about Mexico is that just hanging out, I think people spend more time outside than they do like indoors. So walking through the city, or through the town rather, they had some like romantic tours. They have like a place called, I think it's called the Callejón del Beso, where the balconies are so close together where you could stand on either end and, kiss somebody. And I think, let's see what else, the plaza, the lights of churches, it looks very European as well. So you see a lot of that European influence.
Okay. And then you said you went to San Miguel de Allende. I always hear about the San Miguel de Allende, but I never know like what's there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is the center, the plaza. Let me see, I think I have a picture. So I have some of the Mayan Riviera and then San Miguel de Allende. So that's the church. Here the Cristo Rey, that's in Guanajuato, I believe. And then Guanajuato is also the backdrop of that city. So it's, I think a lot of it is just getting to walk around, eat at some other restaurants. This ice cream, I believe it was naranja con tequila.
What?
So they have
sounds delicious.
Yes, they have like dozens of different flavors of ice cream that you could try. I think I tried vanilla con whiskey and like all these different flavors. So just going around and having a good time.
If I want to go to Guanajuato, to what airport should I fly into?
I believe they have one in Guanajuato.
Oh, they do. Okay.
I believe, or it's either there or in León, because these towns, what was cool about them, we visited them all in one day. So we went from León, and then to Guanajuato, and then San Miguel de Allende. So they're only a couple of hours, away from each other.
Okay. And it's super safe to drive, or do you recommend you get a tour person that can take you from town to town?
Yeah. So I am pretty comfortable driving a lot of the times. Like, for example, when I go to Michoacan, I land in Guadalajara, and it's a 2.5-hour drive. And on the highways, it's very safe. Those are usually the toll roads, and I've driven by myself. I've driven with family, though my parents are concerned, there is that level of concern that you have to have. But overall, I've never had a bad experience. I'll even say this here, I've gotten pulled over. Everything was fine. And this was like just because of my bad, I was speeding, but, but I've never had a bad experience. And we drove from Michoacan to León, to Guanajuato, to San Miguel. So we've done that. When I went to Ciudad de Mexico, I took the bus, and I took it by myself, so I think there's a level of caution you have to have. Like, obviously, I would recommend only drive during the day. But overall, it's been pretty good.
That is very nice. Someone is asking, Radais is asking, where did you find the best tacos out of all the cities? I know it's hard to choose, but we want to know.
I have a picture of food.
You're making me hungry.
The tacos are different depending on the location. So, for example, I think they each have their own spin, but I've never really had a horrible taco unless they get you sick. And, that sometimes can happen. But I know like Cabo and like northern Mexico on that side has a lot of al pastor or abobada, which is like the pork marinated, which is really good. I think Ciudad de Mexico is very similar in that. Michoacan is more of the carnitas, which is the pork that's cooked in its own fat, basically, for hours at a time, and it is delicious and amazing. Then you have the beach cities, and they focus more on like the seafood, so I think if you look for it, you're always gonna find a good taco. And it just depends on what kind you want. You could try one a different day, but I will say that always ask for locals, and always see where the lines are, because you could see taco stands everywhere, and there's a taco stand that has 0 people, and there's a taco stand that has like 7 people. Yes. So go to that one. It's worth the wait. Yes. That's probably my biggest tip.
And sometimes the best ones are the ones that open at night as well, I've seen.
Yes.
Like after you come out of the drinking from the club, and like you go out and you're like, yes, right there.
Exactly. Yep. Those are always, there's always a good taco, somewhere in the middle of the night.
Yes. What else can you tell us about like where to go, what to do? Oh, how you say driving in Mexico is quite easy, as long as you are patient with the traffic, right?
Yeah, depending on where you are, yes.
But what system do you use for navigation when you drive?
Yeah. So I use Google Maps. That's the one thing I relied on all the time. And this is even like in the ranchos that, where my family's from, to get to the cities, like that always navigated me the right way. The cool thing about it is you can avoid tolls or you can go the highway. It's really up to you. I also ask around. There's a saying in Mexico that says, preguntando se llega a Roma. So wherever you want to go, you just like ask. And a lot of we can't rely so much on like Yelp, on businesses being on Google. So I would always ask. Like I remember I try to get a rental car in a rancho. Like who's gonna have one there, right? But I asked around, and then people were like, oh, these are only stick shift. That's important to know when you're outside of America. Yeah. And eventually I just ended up calling my mom, like, I need a car and I don't know where to get one, or I need a ride. And she was like, oh yeah, there's a señora from this other town and she gives rides. It's like an unofficial Uber. So she takes people to the airport. I was like, look at that. My mom here hooking it up, and she was telling me, who to connect. She gave me her number, and then, people know how to get what you need. You just have to like ask around. It's the old school way of doing it, but you just have to like make those connections.
And speaking in Spanish, do you think it was a great advantage, or do you think people still are able to communicate in English?
I think Spanish is a big one. Depending on where you are, there's some people that do know in the cities. So like in the big cities and the tourist cities, a lot of people are going to know how to speak English, but it is a benefit to know Spanish. Also because they will always try to haggle you. no matter what. And if you know how to speak Spanish, you know how to like, bring it back down. And I see that all the time where, especially if you speak English and you're from America, people are going to try to get $1 out of you. That's for sure, whenever they're selling things, especially in the cities and the tourist place. So
what is that dish on the left, on the top left?
So that's something I learned how to cook from my abuela. It's called espinazo. It's made out of a chile sauce, and it's pork spine basically. So what's interesting, what I learned a lot of my culture is that pork is very prevalent in the region of Mexico I'm from. And then if you kind of like dig into the history of it, is because you don't want to waste anything, like back in the day, everything had to be used. So that's like one of the dishes that's very common in my area in Mexico.
Yes. And the second dish, is that tamales?
So similar. So they're called corundas, and they're delicious. They're made out of similar masa that tamales are, but they're wrapped in the leaf of the elote. So they're the green leaf. And typically they don't have like the pork or the chicken of traditional tamales. They usually have either like a slice of cheese or maybe some jalapenos or something. But you eat it with like sour cream and crumbled cheese and the salsa on top. So a lot of, like, I've seen my grandparents eat it as a substitute of tortillas. So they'll have a caldo and then, they have a corunda if they have them, but they're amazing and delicious.
Oh my God, you're making me so hungry.
I'm hungry too.
Oh Lord. All right, very good. Do you guys have any questions in the Zoom chat or in Instagram? If you have any questions about Mexico, she has traveled almost all of Mexico. Doing her
Is that ceviche in that picture?
Yeah, ceviche? I'm getting there. I think that's ceviche. Yes, on that picture there.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. What's interesting, before I had like this big goal of like traveling all the states in America, and ever since being in Mexico and traveling in Mexico so much, I think I've been to maybe like 10 or 11 states, and there's only 31, 32. I can't remember quite what it is, but I think that's one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to, is getting to know every different state, because they're so drastically different, just the same as they are here. But it feels good to know that like I can relate to the culture a little bit better. It's just like a different aspect of it, and it's always fun to try. The food's always different. So it's definitely on my list.
The same way the tacos are different, like you explained, also the moles are different for every area.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, did you go on an adventure of moles too?
I have not yet, but I was lucky enough just to like kind of experience the way that it's made here, because in the rancho everything is like made from scratch. So like tortillas being made from the molino, the mill, and having that experience, and asking my grandma how she makes hers, because she hasn't made it in a long time, but what ingredients go into it, and it's very different. And I know like the moles in Oaxaca, like you'll find any and all different flavors. So that's why it's like a big part of on my list is it's very prominent there, and I think that's where it originated from. So I definitely want to give it a try out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you go out dancing or to any cool bars that you want to recommend?
Yeah. So this is what's fun and interesting about Mexico, is like you have two different kinds of styles. So you have a country, which is like, and I didn't recognize this till I was in Mexico, it's like literally country music, but the Mexico. So that's like the banda, the traditional like brass instruments. And you'll find fiestas happening, especially during the holiday season, almost every day of the week. So my friends and my cousins and I would go to, baile almost every single night. And that's more of the traditional dancing. So it's going to be similar to like a family party. You're going to find young people there. You're going to find teenagers. You're going to find the tias and the parents and the elders, so it's a big like community thing. Where we did get to go out was in Morelia, where they have antros, which are the clubs. So for that, we really had no idea, and you could really find any type of style. So every time we would go eat, we would ask the waiter, what place do you recommend?
That's super smart.
Yeah, because they know, like, they go out after their shift. So we would do that. And what was cool about that is I think a lot of Latin America parties almost every day of the week. So I think we went on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and we still managed to go out and find yeah. we found people out there, and it was fun. And it's just what kind of style. He was like, well, what kind of music do you want? Do you want Mexican music? Do you want reggaeton? Do you want like what do you want to listen to? And then it also changes by region. So Ciudad de Mexico, they do a lot of salsa. So, and I didn't know that. I was like, oh, I thought all of Mexico listened to like banda, like what? So that was interesting for me to find out. They do a lot of like salsa, they do a lot of merengue. And similar thing in the antros is just asking somebody who lives there, who knows the place, of what they would recommend. And then when I was in the Yucatan, salsa, tropical, that was like the Caribbean there. So it was fun there too. And just knowing the people, like that's where I went with people who I met at couch surfing, like actually go with them, and they know all the bars. So we went to maybe like 4 or 5.
Wow.
I think
like
what was
bar
cool about it,
kind of thing.
yes.
I love it.
It was fun. And what's cool is the locals know where they're very I guess they're like gentlemen there, where they look out for the girls they're hanging out with. So they're like, oh, this bar, it's open bar for ladies. So we would go there first, and then they would take us around. So it was a good time.
That is so cool. Very good. Now, what drinks do they have in the bars? Because I know people think, oh, it's margaritas and tequilas and that's it. But what kind of drinks do they really have? Is it that, or there is more?
I think a lot of the people, depending on where you go, like if you go to a baile, they typically have like beer is very prominent. But they also have like these small booths, because the hustle is real everywhere in Mexico. So you'll see people like bring their own booths, and they have their own like, bar station, and they have the regular drinks. They're not going to taste the same, they're going to be similar. But I know a popular one is called a cantarito, which they make it in a clay cup. So clay is like traditional what do you call it? It's not a dip, it's just like where they hold the drink, but they serve palomas in there, which are tangerine soda with tequila and like orange juice. Or they sell any other drink. Let's see, they have like the regular stuff, like the Mai Tais and all of that. They're not going to taste, exactly the same, but they'll have a good kick, for you to have a good time. And in other places, micheladas are like super popular. I would always have micheladas everywhere.
What is a michelada?
So michelada, if you see the picture of the ceviche, is that in the back. So it's a mix of tomato juice, so like clamato, and then they have like their own special mix of salsas. So it could be anything from like chiles to like chamoy, which are like more on the sweeter, tangier side. So every person makes their michelada a little bit different, but then it also has like a splash of lime juice, and then a beer as well. So it's like a Mexican Bloody Mary. A lot of people describe it that way. Yeah.
Yes.
But they're delicious.
When I went, almost every drink that I ordered, they were serving it with mezcal. A mezcal was big there.
Yeah.
And I always thought, while living in the United States, that tequila was bigger, but apparently mezcal is even bigger. So tell us about that.
Yeah. And I think it's dependent on the region, because tequila, I believe, if I'm not wrong, it originates from Jalisco, and it originates from the town Tequila. So it's made out of the agave, and so is mezcal, but mezcal typically has more of a smoky flavor, and mezcal could be made everywhere else. So like compared to, one state, you could have mezcal, up and down Mexico, wherever you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And apparently, like tequila, you could take it in a shot, but mezcal, they recommend you don't. It's sipping it little by little and savoring it kind of thing.
Yeah. I ended up taking a tequila tasting, experience when I was in Playa del Carmen, and they actually say the same thing with tequila. So it's actually meant to be tasted, but it's been, in America,
oh, really?
You just take down shots because that's what people do. But yeah, and it was interesting to like try all the different flavors, and they said that chocolate is a good pairing for it. And I was like, wow, okay.
Yes. Where did you take the tasting of tequila?
Yeah, this was we stayed in a hotel in Playa del Carmen. I can't remember the name of it now. I wish I could remember. But they had a course there. It was like a 1-hour experience where you just try like the gold, the silver, the añejo, the really fancy ones, so that you can really see the difference in the different tequila.
Very nice. Anything else that you want to share with us? Any experience that you went and like you say, oh my God, this.
I know one thing that I loved in the Yucatan Peninsula was the cenotes. So they have thousands of cenotes there, and those are like the water holes, and they're all very different. Like some of them are in caves, some of them are like in open water, some of them have like a lot of greenery, hanging from the top, and there's like a sunlit roof. And then some of them are like salty water, some of them are sweet water. And you just get to see all of this nature, and just like go swim in it. It's so peaceful. So I would recommend that. I know like the beach is a popular, destination to go, but the cenotes are just something else. And I really got to experience that when I was in Tulum. In Tulum, it's very bike friendly. So I would ride my bikes, from here to there, and just like go out and spend the day at one cenote and then come back and do it again the next day. So
very, very cool. Do they charge when you go to the cenotes, or is like open to the public?
They charge, but I think, compared, it's probably no more than $5. It's like very affordable, depending on the cenote. So to me, it was, very easy for me to go and spend that money because what the experience you get, it was really cool.
Very nice. And have you gone to Lucha or a football game?
Oh wait, Lucha Libre. Yes, I have. Yeah, that was an interesting experience too. It was so fun. In Ciudad de Mexico, I went, and the level of like fanatics, there, it's so fun just to be there. So I went to a football game with my dad in Morelia, and even though the team lost, it was like lit. Everybody was just excited, music, beer everywhere. I think the people who sell beer literally carry a keg on their back and they serve it to all the people, because that's just, people drink beer all the time. And after the game, even though they lost, everybody's just like raging and jumping up and down like they won the game. And the Lucha Libre too, just like the comments people throw. So, it's just so funny. I think I had more fun listening to all the comments everybody's saying, and then watching the reactions of it. It was ridiculous, but so much fun.
Yes. Do you have any more pictures to share with us?
Let me see.
I know you had.
No, I think that was it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have tons of pictures, but most of them I just like share them on Instagram and my stories and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool. Any questions, guys, that you have about Mexico, how to travel there, what to see, what to do? Make sure you write it on Instagram, or if you're in Zoom, you also write it. Someone asked, how do you get around from town to town? But you already said it.
Yeah. Uber is a good option too. So I would definitely recommend that. Typically, it's a little more safe than regular taxis. So it just depends where you are. I tend to be a very trusting person. That could be good, that could be bad. But like in Morelia, I got around a lot in the bus. I would also take Uber because it's usually cheap. It's like a couple of dollars. Some of the taxi drivers, you know, they'll be nice and you'll have good experiences for a majority of them. But some of them don't have like their certification. It's just like what it is, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Someone say, how safe or unsafe was Mexico City? I hear rumors that it's a little dangerous.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's true on both ends. So there is a lot of crime that happens in Ciudad de Mexico, in Mexico City. It's just a matter of how you navigate. Like if you're street smart, you'll be fine. They have a big metro system, right? So long as you keep your purse in sight, you know, just like the typical travel advice, you'll be okay. I would recommend Ubers more than anything there. But some of the Uber drivers I've talked to, they've had like their phones stolen while they're at a red light, you know? So they talk about those things, but it only happens like once a blue moon to people who are local and who are there often. And then I would just say research the area you're in. I stayed close to the Zócalo, which is the main, you know, attraction there, and there's a metro stop nearby. I felt safe the entire time. I was also with friends there, so you know, walking, you know, with people there, making sure you're taking Ubers, not being out super late, and everything was fine for me. You know, it's just a matter of like being smart about it.
Yes. I stay in the Polanco area, which is where mostly the locals live, but it's like a kind of fancy area, if you want to call it. And they have tons of restaurants there. Ubers are super cheap. Like it could be like $5 and you're traveling for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are they making money?
Yeah. The American dollar stretches really far in Mexico.
Yes, definitely. Someone asked, if the Spanish language confuses me in Mexico, we have different meanings to certain words. Absolutely. Every country, they have their own modismos, if we want to call them. And yes, one of the big words that people always, she said she used, that she was going to take the bus. So she said, go ahead, el autobús. But in Mexico, go ahead with something completely different. There was an incident also in my school. We had a Mexican, when I lived in Dominican Republic, we had a Mexican student who came to school, and he saw a girl, and she was so pretty. And he was like, wow, que cuero. And cuero means like you're very good looking in Mexico. But over there, it means you're a whore.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So she was like, what did you say?
Yeah. You know, it happens to me too. It happens to me too. I've had instances where I think one of the main ones that my cousins always made fun of me for was in Mexico, they have this bread called trompada, which it's like pig, it's like pig shaped, but it's really good. And then the bread makers, they come in a truck and they sell it, you know, from town to town. And I said, me da un trompazo. And trompazo means like, you know, like you're getting punched in the face. And then I didn't click, and I was like, sure. So it's like, it happens to me all the time because I just get everything confused. But it's funny. It's fun. I mean, if you learn to make fun of it, you have a story to tell.
Exactly. Any other questions, guys? If you're in Instagram or if you're in Zoom, any questions you may have. We have Maira here talking everything about Mexico with us.
Yeah.
Which, since you travel regularly there, which airlines do you find favorable prices to get there?
Yeah. Typically Volaris has cheaper prices, but they also have the most fees. So when it comes to like luggage, I know every time I go, I bring like so much, stuff back, just like recuerdos and things like that that I want to bring home. So typically I go with Interjet, also because they serve, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know how it will be after this economic downturn, but I think they had like free alcoholic beverages. So like you could order a beer, you could order you could order things like that. I've also heard Aeromexico is pretty good. And then I've taken American Airlines before. It depends on the city that you're at. Cities like LAX have more frequent flights, so other cities might not. So yeah, but
what's the lowest you have paid for a flight?
So right before COVID, sad, I bought a flight for, I think it was $100 round trip.
No, that's so cheap.
Yeah, and I had to cancel it sadly because it was before when I didn't know how serious the thing, everything was, and I was like, I'm not gonna go and travel.
You're
right
probably
now.
safer there.
To be honest, yes.
I went to Jordan. Yeah. They had one case. I'm like, why would I go back to the United States? They have over 2,000 cases. I'm like, I'm scared to go back.
Yeah, exactly.
And I haven't gone outside since. It's been 32 days.
Yeah, it's so long. Yeah,
but hopefully the traveling resumes soon,
right?
And we can pick up where we left off.
Exactly. I just want to say I appreciate platforms like this because you're allowing us like to travel without having to leave our homes, and I think that's important. And I know one thing I've done is I've like connected through phone or FaceTime with some of my friends in Mexico, and it feels like you're back, just like seeing it in video. So for anybody who's made those friendships, it's a good way to connect, to see how everybody else is doing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, for giving us all this information about Mexico, and I cannot wait to go back. I even told my husband, if there is a country I could live, it would definitely be Mexico.
Oh yeah, me too.
Because they have everything I may want. When I went to Mexico City, they have these beautiful speakeasies. And I love that kind of stuff. Fancy cocktails, places that you have to go through a hidden area, and then you're like, boom, this is here. I like that. And I like also fine dining. So I know there is a lot of fine dining all around Mexico. They have the top 50 bars they have in the world. They have the highest list, and they have they don't have Michelin star restaurants because Mexico actually doesn't have any, but they have, out of the top 50 restaurants in the world, they have restaurants there. So I know I will be completely satisfied if I'm Mexico.
Yeah, that's where I'm retiring, that's where I'm going to go. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you so much again. And tomorrow we're going to have another episode. We're going to have Argenis. That's episode 28, guys. Can you believe it? We've been doing this for a month every day. And he's going to cover Malta, the navel of the Mediterranean. So he's right there between Italy and Spain. And he's going to talk about that island and everything there is to do. He's actually in Barcelona. So he's going to connect with us even through the time difference. And I cannot wait. So that's why it's a little bit earlier tomorrow. It's going to be at 1:30 Eastern time and at 10:30 Pacific time. So I hope you tune in to hear Argenis talking about Malta. And again, Maira, thank you so much for introducing us to Mexico. And we'll be in contact.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. And I hope everybody visits.
Yes, absolutely.
Adios.
Adios.